Thank you for joining us this morning for our city council work session. We'll go ahead and get started. Shawnee, could you please call the roll?
Bates.
Here.
Cheatham.
Here.
Burrick.
Here.
Mangum. Nichols. Paulson.
Here.
Glad.
Here, thank you. We'll go ahead and get going here. I do not see, I know that Portland Valley Development Corporation, I know she's been traveling. I don't see her out here, so we'll go ahead and jump to proposed agenda item number 3 is proposed December fiscal year 2026 budget amendments. Finance Department staff members will be in attendance to present to council detailed information on proposed fiscal year 2026 December budget amendments for the public hearing to be held December 18, 2025. There we go, Rich.
Getting used to this. 3 days in and I haven't left yet.
Not bad, not bad.
Lonnie's gonna have your detailed answers, but I think we could get started. I've looked over the information that was given me. And not knowing how this usually goes, I don't know if you want me to go through the memo that we have, if you want to start asking questions.
So I'm thinking that let's go through. Let me look at this memo that we have. Yeah, you'd want to introduce yourself.
Mayor, Council, Rich Morgan, Finance.
See, I forgot that too. So
I did too. I should know better.
why don't we go through like the timeline we've got here, the timeline in that memo. Important for people to understand what that timeline looks like, and then what the current budget is, what the proposed budget will be, and then we can go through those amendments.
You bet. So the timeline is usually just following state statute. We are required to publish twice. There's a required space in between those publications that we have to meet. So that's why you see the notice sent to the Idaho State Journal, public notice, the first public notice, presentation to council, that's what we're doing, and then the second published notice. That meets the requirements for the public hearing. We have to go through this process for the budget and for any amendment that ever takes place for the budget. So why we amend, you usually have unrecognized revenue come in. We didn't know. There's a couple of things on the agenda or on the schedule that are donations. I'm assuming that at the time the budget was passed, we did not know that donation was coming in. So we're gonna have to open the budget to recognize that donation so that we can utilize the resources. Most of what's going on here is we're going to access reserves. Every year at the end of a fiscal cycle, any unused amounts drop to reserves. That, for lack of a better term, that locks that up until we release it through putting it through the regular budget cycle or amending the budget to use it. That's one control the council can use in accessing those reserves, is they get to decide whether you're going to access it or not. Most of what's happening here is that. We've got these resources in reserves, and we're gonna bring them up for the departments to use.
Rich, a lot of these reserves are within the department itself
That is correct.
that we've got lined up here.
So the city of Pocatello, I've learned this in the last 3 days, actually, like in the general fund reserve is a large sum, but there's several departments in the general fund, and we transfer those to what we call a 078 or a different fund, and that tracks those those reserves or those savings for that particular department. I actually think that's a good management practice. It stops the department heads from feeling like they have to use it or lose it. And that's good management. If they are frugal and they're willing to plan and they know that they have access to those funds in the future to help with projects that are coming in the future, I mean, that's a win-win. So I think that policy is a good one.
Mayor.
Yes.
So
Councilmember
Rich,
Bates.
I have a question about that. Some of these, so I'll use parks as an example. purchasing the playground equipment, $349,000 allocated reserves in Fund 78. But the $500,000 for the tennis courts is unallocated reserves in Fund 78. How much do we know, what is the balance of unallocated reserves, and is that just excess savings that we have kept in Fund 78?
That is what it is. I don't have the exact number for you here.
Okay.
I didn't come with that exact number, but we can get that for you. I can
Yeah.
look at- So, but that's exactly what it is. Yes.
So if I may, Rich, we have done a couple of things. When a department knows that they need something, or we need to carry money over from a year because the project hasn't been completed, we typically put that in Fund 78 for that department. And then there are times when that department says, I can't do this for 3 years, but I need to save this money for it. That also goes into that. There's also some money that we have allocated that as excess reserves that we know that some departments are going to need, and we put that money in there also, so it's available. But the council, when we set this practice up, was very adamant that they would be aware of anything that was coming out of there that did not have that excess, or that was not earmarked for a department. And so that's what that 500,000 is excess, and it's the council's opportunity to go ahead and approve it or not, and, look at it and go from there. So if I'm looking at Ann, we had a discussion in the work session a month ago or two about that very money. We agreed to that in a council meeting, is that correct? And so that $500,000, because we've done that, the council's gone through that process. Now that's just moving that unallocated 500,000 into the budget to be able to be spent.
Yeah, I think what I would be interested in, and Rich, you've said I'd be grateful if you can get that to us. I would like to know what the balance is. And, if we were to approve, this is $8 million total, all of these amendments. I would be interested to know, what do our reserve funds look like if all of these are approved?
You bet.
Okay. Other questions? And they'll have that if somebody in finances is paying attention to this right now,
Very quickly.
they'll walk into the meeting in a minute with those numbers.
Yeah, I trust we can get that.
So-
I do have some other questions on a couple of these amendments, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
I was wondering, because I know I asked about this with the last budget amendment on the rebranding from the mayor's office. If I remember right, the last budget amendment was for $350,000. Is this simply the same amount, but we didn't get all of the spending done in FY '25, and we're needing to do it in FY '26?
Yes, I believe that there's a $40,000 that we need to add to that. And if you have another question or two, Ann put a sheet of paper on my desk that explains a little bit of this, and so I can grab that. I forgot to bring it in with me.
Well, there's only one other amendment I have a question about. Maybe your sheet applies to it, maybe it doesn't. It would be the Public Works one, Amendment 20 and 21. So Amendment 20, we're taking $99,849 from Fund 30 and moving that to Fund 54. So I guess I just have a question about Fund 30 is an enterprise fund, and we're moving it to a general fund. How does that work?
Okay, either one of you two or Tom's on his way up here too that can help answer this. Want me to go grab that?
Okay, thank you.
Tom Kirkman, Public Works Director. So the Public Works Department is funded primarily through enterprise funds. So before the reorg of Public Works, I was the Director of Public Services, and so I was over the Sanitation Department, the Street Department, Fleet Services. And then the previous Public Works Director was over the Engineering Department, Water Department, and WPC. And so a while, or I don't remember how many years ago, there used to just be one public works director, probably 15 years ago. And that position was fully funded through all of those departments. Well, when it split into two different divisions, street and sanitation and fleet were paying the director of public services wage, or street sanitation. And then water WPC and a little bit of general fund was paying for the public works director. So basically what we're doing is now that those two positions are combined, we're just putting that back the way it used to be 15 years ago.
Moving
that make sense?
budget to the correct fund.
Okay, yeah, so, yeah, I mean, I guess this position is it's a combination of some enterprise funds and some general fund.
Correct? Because this department
Touches both.
supports all of them.
Yeah, okay. And I do just have a question about, I guess, the position. So Director of Public Services, we're changing it to Public Works Business and Administration Director. Do you mind, Tom, just explaining the role, the responsibilities? And I mean, are we adding responsibilities from what the Director of Public Services was doing? I don't know anything about it.
Yep. So the Business and Administrative Director, in my opinion, is something that Public Works has been lacking. In my opinion, we've had issues with this department for a long time. I think this position, what we're doing with this position is this is the position that's the liaison with all the departments. It helps with the financing, right? So we're going to have a holistic approach to budgeting instead of siloed budgeting. This position is currently over our environmental compliance and our public works outreach, as well as our project management. This position is something that we haven't done really good with is emergency planning. This position's going to do that, bring all the departments together with that. What's that?
Long-term planning.
Long-term planning is strategic planning and data analytics from all the departments.
How does that compare to what Director of Public Services was doing before?
So basically, the Director of Public Services was basically like a Public Works Director and a Public Works Director, basically, overseeing all these departments, overseeing these departments. So now the Public Works Director is overseeing all of the departments, and the Business and Administrative Director is a complement to that, to handle these other functions.
Okay. One last question, if that's okay, Mayor. The combined amount, so the 99,000 and 99,000, is this just one position? Is there,
That's a benefited rate, so
Okay.
it includes all the
everything?
benefits and everything.
Okay.
Okay. And I did, if you don't have any more questions for Tom, I did get this paper I've meant to bring in here. We need $40,000 to finish the final purchase and take care of the final bills on the rebranding. We did not spend the $350,000 from last budget amendment, and so we needed to roll over some this year. That's where this $40,000 is coming from. And to date, council we have spent on the vendor for Hub Limited, it was $93,940.98. That was for all of the work. We budgeted $100,000 on that one. And then we have spent approximately to date about $645,000 on this. We're asking for that additional 40 to take care of it. And we've budgeted about $1 million for this, approximately $1 million. And so on both ends, we are coming in under budget and with that rebranding. But that's where that 40,000 is coming from.
Mayor, if I could, yeah, that's correct. The 350,000 rolled over from what they didn't spend. And so we're basically just moving 40,000 of that back so they can spend that.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Other questions, council, that we might have on this? I think in fact, I'm sure we've talked about all of these at one point.
Did we need to go over the negative amounts? I apologize, I had to go.
We have not gone over the negative amounts. So yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Okay. So we are consolidating Fund 17, which is the Science and Environmental Fund, to the Public Works just for efficiency. And so to not overstate the budget, we had to show a credit on one and then a debit or an adjustment on the other, so it'll just wash. So it looks kind of funny, but it does wash out with what they asked for on the other side.
I do have one question on that. So Amendment 25, that's the one from Fund 17 that's going towards grants. Was that just reserves that Fund 17 had?
Yes. So that was, it went into Fund 17 and whatever went into that fund for the grants, we are moving to the grants department. And then basically the salaries and operations were moving to Public Works.
Yeah, that, the rest, all of the O and M of Fund
Yes.
17 is going to Public
Correct.
Works. Okay.
Correct, yeah. But we do have to keep the grant money separate because it's restricted, so that's why it's going to the grants department.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, is there anything else you feel would be important to point out, bring up?
I just address maybe Councilman Bates' concern. We are required to make sure that money collected for sanitation, money collected for wastewater, money collected are spent on those items, and we'll be able to show you that.
Yeah.
Were you able to get, Bonnie, I don't know if you know this off the top of the head or if you were able to do this, I stepped out, the Fund 78 unallocated dollar amount?
Do you want that amount? Yeah, I have it. I think there's like 3.4 total in that fund. It's all organized.
I know. Well, we got going, we didn't have our first one here, and so
Oh,
it
is
threw
that what
everybody.
happened? Okay. So where is that?
There you go. Is that not it?
Guys, I thought I had it, I guess I don't. There is a total of 3.4 in that fund, and we are tracking it. And I did check it this morning to make sure that we had enough with what we had in here for Fund 78. But I can definitely get you those hard numbers.
Bonnie, is that 3.4, is that unallocated or is that everything?
It's a combination of unallocated and, yeah.
And allocated
And, yeah.
funds? Do you know roughly what the unallocated amount is?
60/40, 60 unallocated, wouldn't you say, Mayor?
Probably close to that, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think we can get you the list.
We can get,
Yes,
Bonnie
for sure.
obviously has the numbers, it's
I
just
do.
not with her right here, so.
I apologize.
But we can get that number,
That's
but
okay.
you're probably, it's probably roughly 60/40, yeah. That's what I remember, but it's been a minute since I looked at those numbers too, so. Okay, other questions, council, that? All right,
Sorry.
yes, no,
I'm so
you're all
sorry. I
right.
have one more from the Parks Department, just for my own personal knowledge. I remember from budget development meetings, we were talking about ideally wanting to get, replace up to 3 playgrounds. How many of this 349, how many are we able to do?
Ann Butler, Parks and Recreation Director. We have a couple large pieces of equipment on the list as well, an excavator, a gang mower, some smaller mowers, but I'm hoping to bite off Alameda Park. There are multiple playgrounds there, so that's what I'm hoping. I would anticipate it would be about 100,000 of the 350.
Okay, so this 350, 100,000 is one playground, and then the rest is equipment?
Yes. And the majority of the playgrounds that we have to replace are smaller ones between 30 and 40,000, but Alameda's kind of the exception right now.
Okay. Do we plan to replace more this year?
We did, I was looking at the wrong.
Yes, we have actually a couple that we are putting together right now as a winter project. We have a retire playground program. I'm trying to get some commercial or private businesses to kind of go in on those so we can put up some more. We truly have probably 5 or 6 that are high priority for me, and then I probably got another 5 or 6 below that. Truly, we really should replace 1 or 2 playgrounds a year, and then we would just kind of stay on that 20 or 25 year replacement.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, just a minute, and Council President Lyric.
I just have a question about number 6, so the 500,000 for the shared tennis courts with School District 25. Can you just remind me when we would start the construction on those?
So when we came
What
to
the
work
schedule?
session about a month and a half ago, they were projecting they would be done in the summer of '27. They have since moved up that timeline because they're planning to tear out the existing tennis courts and move them to the parking lot they're working on now out in front of Highland High School. So they're telling me they think that will be done this summer.
This summer?
Yep, summer of '26.
26, so a year ahead. Awesome.
Now, Council, I might remind you, though, the school district, we're just giving them the money. The school district is in charge of building and all of that mess. And so that timeline is a guess or an estimate from what they're guessing right now, so.
Yeah, I hadn't pushed. She just said, hey, let them know that we're really, and it makes sense because they were trying to have those tennis courts done so that their teams have a place to play
Right.
the following spring.
Would it be nice if it's early? Then just one other kind of silly question, but where's Freckleton Park?
It is right next to the rec center. It's that little sliver piece along the railroad tracks.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
It's one of the finest parks we have with the hottest, steepest metal slide you will have in Pocatello. I love it. My kids, my grandkids were going down there. They did it once. And that was it last summer.
Burn their legs.
We tried to tell them, but sometimes you just have to learn for yourself. So
It
they all
also-
took a turn.
It also has the highest ratio of trees. There's literally probably 60 trees lined on both sides of that
That's
little
true.
itty bitty park.
I never knew that.
Oh, it's
That
got a
was the name of
merry-go-round
that.
too, if I remember right. We flung our grandkids off a
I think that
merry-go-round
one's
too.
gone now.
Oh, it's gone now?
Yeah.
Dang it. The greatest times growing up were those
And
things.
while I have you, one other question is, so the golf ones, 26 and 27, the 2.4 million, that's the total for building and everything?
2.5, yeah.
Or-
And
yeah,
that includes the
with the
donation.
100 for design.
Yes,
Okay. Oh, yeah, can you remind, how much was the donation?
700,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Just a quick comment on that. I'm very excited to see that on there too. When will that one start?
We are anticipating, the architect is working on construction drawings right now, which means we'll go out to bid probably February, knock down the existing probably March and be under construction all of next season.
So we're gonna have mad golfers next summer, but they're gonna love it the
But they're
summer
going to
after
be
that.
happy because they've wanted this for a long time. So hopefully they can take
They're
the,
golfers. They're never happy.
Well,
Let's
that's
just be
true.
honest. Any other questions, council, that you might have?
Can I go back and comment on?
Yes,
78? Okay.
absolutely.
So we did start the year out at 3.4 as that fund balance. And with our adjustments for FY '25, it's approximately 3.6, but of course, that's not finalized yet. And it's, I think I probably had that backwards. So unassigned is 1.6 and the department is 1.9, or almost 2 million. So if you take away what we have proposed here, we'd still have close to 1 million unassigned and 1.5 available for the departments that are assigned.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions, Council Linney? Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Are we next?
Are you next? You are next. Agenda item 4 is purchasing policy update, Finance Department. Finance Department staff will be in attendance to present a proposed changes to the purchasing policy to align with Idaho State Purchasing Code. Policy adoption will be presented at the council, to the council at a future regular city council meeting.
Good morning, Mayor, members of the City Council. Christine Howe, Grants Manager. Kind of here to provide support, but also you're probably wondering why I'm I'm sitting up here with Finance Department on this policy. Through the Grants Division, particularly under the federal grant requirements, we do a lot of procurement, and our procurements do need to align with federal, state, and local regulations. So in doing a lot of these over the last several years, we've noticed that there's room for improvement and efficiencies in the city's adopted purchase policy. Since the purchase policy has been adopted, the state code that guides purchasing for municipalities has changed 2 times and increased the thresholds that you're allowed to purchase under different procedures. And so in order to create more efficiencies and allow us to spend our money on schedule and on budget a little better, we wanted to propose some changes to the purchase policy to align it with that state code. As a city, you're allowed to have a more strict purchasing policy. So it is allowed that you have lower thresholds and things like that and other measures in place. But from a staff standpoint and our ability to best spend our funds, we feel that aligning it with the state code is a better process moving forward. And it means you may see us fewer times at council meetings. But if we had something like a $25,000 purchase, we wouldn't have to bring it to a council meeting per se and wait 3 weeks to 4 weeks to have that approved to be able to start work. So just allow us to be a little more nimble in accordance with state code. So the majority of the changes in there are to reference state code that guides local purchasing. And we did propose in one section under the professional services, and the Idaho code has specific requirements for purchases in excess of $50,000 for professional services, including like architectural services, construction manager. And then it allows you to also adopt procedures for anything less than that, or you defer to the procedures for anything 50,000 and above. We've included some options for anything below 50,000 that would make it a little more efficient for us as staff. Say we had to engage an architect to give us a quick drawing on, I don't know, the CDBG funded bathrooms at Optimus Park. That's going to be, a $5,000 expense. If we followed the current purchase policy procedure, we'd have to do an RFP process, get that purchase based on, get that award based on qualifications, bring that to City Council for approval, and you'd see that at your meeting for something that was maybe $5,000 already budgeted in our professional services line. So we're hoping to just make things a little more efficient. So the money we have in our budgets, we can appropriately procure those expenses in accordance with the purchase policy, but spend it in accordance with the state code as well in a more efficient way. So that's the majority of the red lines and updates. And I don't know if Bonnie or Rich have anything to add, but.
I just wanted to say, yeah, we're trying to adapt it more to the state policy and GFOA best practices. And it's more a general umbrella to cover all of the departments. And then we will have SOPs or procedures for, more finite steps for each department that match up with those, so.
Questions? All makes sense, so thank you.
Thanks.
We will move then to agenda item 5 is personnel policy handbook update finance policy. Human Resources Department staff will be in attendance to present proposed updates to the Personnel Policy Handbook, Finance Policy. Policy adoptions will be considered by the council at a future regular city council meeting.
Good morning, Heather Buchanan, Human Resources Director. Ooh, I can't spell today. So we are finishing up our last work session with handbook policy adjustments that we would like to make. Left that we need to talk about are a reintroduction of finance policies that are applicable to employees. And then we have a small section we would like to add on how rebranding, now branding, should be applied here at the city. We did not want to incorporate the entire branding guide. The handbook is long enough. So we have put a few paragraphs together for that one. So I worked with Anne and Marlise on the use of brand policy. It talks about what logos, how they cannot be altered, internal and external materials, purchasing requirements is still addressed. And then we just have the location on the city server of where you access the city logo and style guide in case any changes are made. This is just so we have applicable sections, so managers and employees know what their thresholds are as they start going into things. We don't have this addressed in the handbook at all now, so this would be a new section that would kind of go under the PIO, so section of the handbook. All right. So we are reintroducing the finance policies back into the handbook. Currently, they are administratively adopted by the mayor for our transit grant. We have made some small tweaks to this. Rich and I were talking this morning. There's still a few little oddities in here we're going to correct, but nothing that is big. It's just like a typo or an email wrong, or we just need to put a work day instead of a day. So I will make sure if there's anything large when we bring the handbook for adoption that you're aware of those. But these policies need to go back in the handbook. It talks about direct deposit requirements, pay for employees, how checks are paid out when an employee separates from the city. For some reason, during an election year, we often hear about elected official pay refusal. There is a section of the handbook on that. Payroll processing errors. This is an area we made some updates to be compliant with state and federal standards. So there is some state and federal code now listed within the handbook about when paychecks have to be issued if there is an error. Timekeeping is also in here. I'm guessing if we see an amendment to this handbook, it will be under this section. Our new payroll team hasn't had a chance to dig heavily into electronic timekeeping. But we do need to make a few tweaks there. But right now, we don't have anything that employees are certifying to, so they don't understand the standards that they're being held to. So we would like to get it in now. And then it readopts travel time, time rounding with time clock plus. And then there's some sections we need for grants. A small amount about P cards. There is much more detail in overall finance policies on P cards. This is just what's applicable to employees for their use. That's on lines 374. And then it reintroduces retirement and holiday spending and reimbursement for interviews for department head positions. So these would come hopefully on the next meeting for a full handbook adoption. So you've now seen me, I believe, in July, August, September, and December. You used to do this all in one meeting, and by the end of it, you were all laying on the dais. So we have broken this up to make it a bit more palatable. Any questions?
I don't see any.
Perfect.
I mean, I have an argument. I don't remember anybody laying on the dais after all that, but I remember
Yeah,
people
we're so-
wanting to.
Me as well.
That's right. Okay, thank you. Then we will move to agenda item 6, ARPA fund reallocation discussion. Finance Department and Planning and Development Services Department staff members will be in attendance to discuss allowable options for reallocating remaining ARPA funding as a result of the cancellation of the finance enterprise software.
So
right, we're back. Christine Howe, Grants Manager. I don't know if you guys.
Bonnie Schrader, Controller.
Becky Babb, Planning Manager.
So we distributed in your packet some information regarding the remaining ARPA funds. As a result of the mutual termination of the finance enterprise software contract, there are $217,860 in ARPA funds that are remaining on that contract that will not be expended. And so we were looking at the available options for projects to which you could reallocate funds. You may recall that these funds did need to be obligated by December 31st, 2024, but the U.S. Department of Treasury in their final rule has some requirements and ways in which you can reallocate funds in the event there are unspent or remaining ARPA funds. There are restrictions on that, and they must meet certain provisions under that final rule that U.S. Department of Treasury has established. So some examples of scenarios in which you could reallocate some of those obligated funds include if you had a contract that was already obligated by that December deadline, if there was a cost increase due to a change order or contingency, and you had language in that contract regarding change orders or contingencies, you could cover those increased costs. If there were funding cost increases for allowable activities that were completed prior to the obligation date and included in a previously obligated item, and then for things like replacement contractors. So they anticipated, say, when you had a contract went out of business and you needed to replace that contract, or in the case of our funds and mutual termination, you could then engage a new contractor for that work. And similarly with our subrecipients, if you had a subrecipient agreement, which functions differently from a contract because it's a direct flow as a subgrantee of the funds, you're allowed to increase those contracts. Similarly, if you had a substitute project, you could reclassify those funds. And so looking at the city's allocated or obligated ARPA funds, most projects that were funded by ARPA have concluded or are completed. The three we identified that are still kind of open and available for reallocating funds include the mental health subrecipient agreements, the Highline project, and the finance software, which is where the origin of these unallocated funds came from. The mental health subrecipient agreements, those are allowable as a funding cost increase through that subgrantee arrangement. I'm overseeing those subrecipient agreements, and one entity has completed their project and two are still underway, so I do not recommend additional funding going to them as they're still working on completing the work and spending down their funds. We did want to include it here as an example of an allowable option, but we don't feel that that's the best fit for reallocating the funds. In addition, there's the Highline project, and Becky and Bonnie chime in at any point if you have information on this as well. But essentially, we funded a portion of the Highline engineering costs through ARPA and a portion through Fund 70. And in addition to the engineering costs for design, there's also going to be construction engineering and inspection expenses during the construction phase. So Highline is already obligated, has a contract obligated including ARPA funds, so you could increase that amount as it's allowable as a substitute project. And the last item is the finance software, and that would be the replacement contract. So you could make the justification to replace the previous contract with the OpenGov contract that we recently entered into for the budget module and or the budget and grants module. And so those are kind of the three areas where we see these funds could be reallocated because these projects meet the U.S. Department of Treasury requirements. With that, we do have some recommendations where we think the funds would be best fit from both a reporting standpoint and the use of the funds standpoint. We think that the most streamlined and effective use of the funds would be for it to go toward the Highline engineering and as much of those CE&I expenses as we could fund with the remaining ARPA funds. So this would essentially replenish what we paid out of Fund 70 using the remaining ARPA funds. So Fund 70 would be made whole, and we'd be able to put that back into Fund 70 to go toward other projects, and then use the remaining for the CE&I. You could also do a combination of the finance software and Highline. We have this here as a note, so you could cover the design that we paid for out of Fund 70, and then use the remaining toward the finance software. Or you could strictly fund the replacement contract for finance software, but that would leave some ARPA funds unspent, about $457, which is not a lot of money, but does create a kind of reporting headache and likely would require just a number of steps with the feds to essentially deobligate those funds. So we feel these are kind of the three best options, with the Highline Engineering and partial CE&I expenses rising to the top, primarily driven by the existing contract and the ability to replenish some expended city funds, and then also the ease of reporting and administering that in the ARPA system on the finance and compliance side of things.
Questions? Dakota?
Christine, I have a question. Do you have any concern about if we were to use any of these funds towards the finance software that it wouldn't be eligible?
I believe for the budget module, it would be very easy to make that case. Like if you're looking at an auditor or monitoring, it'd be very clear cut just upon sort of reading it without diving in that budget module is alike, an apples to apples comparison. I don't think the grant module would be ineligible, having sat in on some of the OpenGov meetings. Much of the work we did under the other contract is what they're using to build out these other modules. So from a technical standpoint, it is a replacement contract, but I think from a compliance and kind of preparing, if you were to get audited or monitored, you just need a lot more backup documentation in those files explaining that, and may raise a red flag if you wanted to include the grants module, the whole OpenGov contract. So yes, but I think it's much cleaner from a federal monitoring standpoint to use an existing contract where it's very much an apples to apples that you can document very clearly.
And it being a different vendor that we didn't have that obligation under could create some issues on the ARPA filing side.
Yeah, but if we put all the funds towards the Highline project, really no concerns.
That would be the cleanest and the most transparent way to do it, because we also have a budget amendment in for our financial software. So we would have to change all that if that's the way you wanted to go.
Yeah, that makes the most sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks to me like everybody's in agreement with you on that, so.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Then we will move to agenda item 7, 2405 Garraway Property Remodel Discussion, Public Works. Public Works representatives will be present to discuss and receive council's feedback regarding the potential property remodel for a Public Works building located at 2405 Garraway.
Good morning again, Tom Kirkman, Public Works. A few months back, when the Public Works Division was reorganized, there was discussion about the potential of moving engineering to another location at the Public Works Annex Building. I think one of the big drivers of that was to try and get some of the departments that aren't secure behind secure doors. And so we're here to discuss the direction that the council wishes to go on this. Just to give you a little background, this facility was purchased in 2018. What it did was centralize 3 departments that used to be in 2 facilities. We combined the sanitation and street department, and then in 2019 we began a fleet central service where all the mechanics throughout the city came to this location. And then in '24 we added the central fueling site that was down on First Street. It was aging and was in need of replacement. And that was one of the benefits of the property of, we had the room to build that there. So currently this is, I know it's hard to see and I apologize for that, and I can get copies if anybody wants to see, but this is the current layout of the facility right now. We're kind of outgrown it a little bit. We currently run about 100 employees in that facility. Some of the biggest issues we're running into is, for instance, our simulators. We spend a good amount of money on our simulators. We don't really know where to house those. Those are sitting out in basically a warehouse. We need to build a formalized area for that training. That's been a really good program that we've started. Our CDL training has just paid huge dividends on that. The other thing is our traffic operations center. I don't know if everybody's seen that or not, but that is busting at the seams. As we have more technology available, as we have more abilities to assist with emergency services in that facility, we have outgrown that space. And so the way this started was mainly we needed to do a little bit of an expansion anyway. The building is owned by street and sanitation departments, so the majority of the funding for this would come from those two departments because they do own the facility. So what we are proposing is something, if you look at the bottom left corner, that would be the proposed new engineering suite. Now, this is basically just a picture. This isn't a set of plans as of today, because we wanted to get council's direction on where we go with this. So in the bottom left corner, you can see that there's 10 offices, and then there's space for cubicles if we need, and then a central meeting area in the center, and there will be some conference rooms, and then there will be added offices for our environmental compliance, and as well as our public works outreach and project management will be there as well. And then towards the top, you can see that that's where the new traffic center would go, in that area to the top of that. It would expand that a lot. There's been a lot of talk between us and the police department about the new license plate readers, and that potentially this could be a good opportunity to kind of help them with that technology as well. So we just need council's direction if this is a direction that you would like to move forward in. If you do want to move forward in this direction, these are our next steps that we'll be looking for. It'll go out for a RFQ, CMGC. Once that's done, we'll work with them and the architect to finalize plans. And then CMGC will bid for a guaranteed maximum price, and then construction.
Councilmember Paulson?
So I'm not sure who this will go to, but so I'm not sure of the status of the RFQ for potentially moving City Hall. If that were to happen, would any of these plans essentially be redundant with a new City Hall?
That's, I guess, kind of the decision that we're looking at. You know what I mean? The one thing that I've noticed with engineering is they kind of get thrown everything. You know what I mean? And I kind of think they need to be in a centralized location where they can service all customers. That's one of the biggest things I see for this. I know that our utilities pay for a large portion of engineering. And I think it would be nice to have them in a separate facility where they can service all departments equally. But I can't answer that question.
That'd be up to the council probably a little bit, but I don't see it affecting that RFP or RFQ for the city hall in the downtown area. I know we received, Brent, 25-ish proposals. I don't know, maybe that's the wrong number, but
Brent McLean, Planning and Development Services Director. Yeah, we received 15 proposals. We've selected an architect through our process of an RFQ process, and they're working on a proposal for us right now to bring forward to the council probably in January. And so, I mean, that's looking at the federal building, and the effect that it would have is if we would have to consider housing engineering within that building or not. And that's kind of what we would have to look at.
So, thank you. Oh, Dakota.
Yeah, I think what Councilmember Paulson brings up touches on, honestly, my biggest concern with this is a big decision that touches a lot of things. And I'm not comfortable with us doing it right now. I would prefer a new council and mayor-elect be in January before I want them to have the opportunity to be part of this discussion, because this is affecting a long-term direction of the city, in my opinion.
Okay. Council President Lyric?
A question about the funds. One of the last things that you said about utilities, and I didn't capture exactly what you said, but a large portion of funding for engineering is from utilities, is that?
So the water department funds one engineer and one tech, and the water pollution control funds one engineer and one tech.
Okay. Because that was one of my concerns about the money to do this for, we've got from street department, sanitation department, and then a small portion from general fund. Just with the use of enterprise funds, when the work that they do isn't all, for those for enterprise funds departments, is there any issue there with where that funding is
Absolutely,
coming
that's a
from?
discussion, yeah, that we need to have. Historically, the utilities house those engineers at their facilities and their techs at that facility. And so that's definitely a decision or a discussion we can have about that. The reason the majority of funding is being done is because it is a street and sanitation asset. But if there's, if there's some monetary commitment from the other utilities, that's fine as well.
Do we, I was wondering how the engineering department works at this point with the different utilities. Was it more in the past where, like you say, a specific engineer worked mainly doing public works WPC projects, or mainly doing water projects? Is it more, has it changed to the point where engineers are sort of working on various different things, or are they assigned mostly to a particular department?
That's kind of the crux of the issue. We're just trying to figure out a way to best handle it moving forward. We're kind of diving into that as we speak. So I don't really have a lot of good information to give you on that today.
That's something that's being considered of how that would be worked out. Okay.
So I just know when the reorg was presented to council, this was talked about, so that's why we're here, to see where everybody's at with that. I should have been here a month or two ago, but life's been a little chaotic, so it's one way or the other. We're easy here. If it's something that we want to think about for a while, I'm fine with that. If it's something we want to move forward on, I'm fine with that.
Okay, Councilmember Bates and then Councilmember Paulson.
I think one thing I would appreciate is, because I agree that you've given me a tour. I've seen the traffic center, and I've seen where you've got your simulators stored, and I agree that we could probably offer a better space for those things. I think I'd appreciate if council had more than one option. If there was, what would this look like if we just were updating the traffic center and making space for the simulators that makes more sense, and leaving engineering at City Hall, and what would the cost, what would the difference in cost be between those two things? Because it's hard to tell, is this 1.1 million, is engineering the bulk of that cost?
So what we did is just made an assumption of $150 a square foot. The engineering portion is probably less than half of that.
So on your map, this, everything on the far left, that's engineering. So the traffic center is coming downstairs?
Yep.
Okay.
And then the simulators we'll have to redesign upstairs to put simulators there.
Oh, okay, all right. So, new square footage to the building, is the traffic center new square footage?
No, this is all under the existing roof.
Okay,
There will be no footprint added.
including engineering?
Yep.
Okay,
The engineering suite would be where the simulators are currently.
oh, I see.
Councilmember Paulson.
I'm not opposed to modernizing or updating the facility, but I really do think we should wait until January to see the RFQ about potentially moving, which I do think we need to get out of this building, but I think we should see something about that before we commit fully to this.
And we're totally good with that. So, like I said, I should have been here a while ago when it was fresh in everybody's mind, so. We have no problem waiting. That's kind of why we're here. It's just, is this a direction we want to go right now or not? Because it's kind of 6 1/2 dozen the other to me.
So, Council, I might just weigh in on this a little bit, and I have no problem waiting until January. However, what I will be doing is directing Tom to move our WPC engineer and their staff to WPC water and their staff to water where they belong, because that's where their main focus needs to be. Right now, in my opinion, we are treading on thin ice. We settled a lawsuit because we were using utility funds to supplement tax-funded things. And this option right here moves that concern out of the way. And so I'll direct him to make that happen this month, to get our engineers separated where they were. We pulled them all together because we thought there were some efficiencies. We've lost, with water and WPC, have lost a lot of the efficiencies that they've needed. And so this would put those efficiencies back. I'll have those moved back out into those areas where they probably need to be if we're not going to do this. Another major concern that I have here at City Hall, if we don't do something here, is Finance Department is where all of our money is, and it's the one department that is split in 2 different areas and not behind locked doors. And that's a major concern that I've had for years, and we've held off on renovating the Finance Department. I think we've had bids of up to $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 for that, and so we've kind of held off on that, but we can continue to hold off on that. Our finance department's split in 2 different areas. It needs to be in one, and we need to get our engineers where they need to be, so that they're doing engineer work instead of working for everybody else, if that's the case. Had concerns from both wastewater and water directors about their engineers doing what they need to be doing, and so if we want to hold off on this, then I've got no concerns, but I do need to get our engineers where they need to be. We'll make it more difficult for our city engineer to manage and do that stuff, but we can totally do that. That's not an issue. Any comments, Tom, on any of that we're concerned that? So that's probably the biggest crux of trying to get this moved, is because I want to avoid a lawsuit that could be there, and I want to be able to make sure our utilities are made whole in everything they're doing, so.
I still think we need to wait.
Okay, no, we're good with
I'm
waiting.
fine with moving the 2 engineers to water and WPC. I think that probably makes sense if that's who they're working with day to day. But I mean, I guess part of my concern, and this discussion I think needs to wait till January, but engineering also works daily with planning. And so I think there needs to still be a connection and a touch point there. And
Those connections are easy if they're separated. They're not next door to each other. They're not as easy as walking down the hall. But I agree, we're fine with that, but we'll go ahead and probably get our engineers to start moving and doing that stuff. And then this topic will not be January, it'll be in February, will be the first work session of the year, so. If the rest of the council agrees with that, then that's what we'll do. I got no issues with that. Okay. Then will you plan on February? And then, yeah, if you'll just start moving, having them prepare where they need to be, then we'll go from there.
Okey-doke.
Agenda item number 8, proposed amendment to civil service rules. Fire department representatives will be present to discuss a proposed amendment to the Pocatello Fire Department civil service rules.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Ryan O'Hearn, Fire Chief. Just wanted to quickly discuss some changes to the civil service rules. We are currently have an open civil service process for our test, which is annually in January. And so we wanted to get those rules amended to reflect some changes we've been working on before that test happens. So the main substantive change is that we're proposing to add 5 additional points to our test for people that hold a National Register of EMT paramedic license or Idaho paramedic. This is something that we've talked about for a few years, and with the change in pay structure last year with the collective bargaining agreement, we feel like the timing is right to implement those changes. We were kind of holding off until we had the pay structure to reflect that change so that we weren't recruiting paramedics that we then didn't have a way to compensate. So we think it will be beneficial from a recruiting standpoint and also put us in line with some other industry standards on attracting paramedics. And then the other changes are mostly language changes that reflect, again, the change in the collective bargaining agreement, change in the name of driver operator to engineer, updating some position titles. There were some old position titles that go back many, many years, and so we're hoping to use this opportunity to clear those up as well. So really it's just a language, other than adding the additional points that actually creates the change. The other was kind of language cleanup that was much overdue. So, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about civil service or explain it if there are any questions.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Then we will move to agenda item 9 is council advisory board updates. This time has been set aside for the mayor and council members to give an update regarding recent advisory board activities. Let's see, we started, I think, at Hayden last time.
We didn't do it last time, so I don't know.
Well, the time before that. Last time we did it. We'll start over here with Councilmember Cheatham, and then we'll run down the.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Airport Commission met this week and had a discussion of projects going on out there. And there's a lot going to be changing at the airport, a lot of refinishing of runways and taxiways. Everybody's probably aware we're going to get a second flight into the airport starting May 7th. It was not the ideal flight that we had hoped for, but it will hopefully cut down the layover time in Salt Lake City and provide some better connection flights to other flights across the country. So that's one of the good things that's happening. There's been a lot of discussion about Airport Commission roles and responsibility, exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And staff at the airport put together some ideas of what might be applicable for that commission to be responsible for. And these were passed out at the meeting. And everybody's going to be looking at these and deciding
if they have additional suggestions or ideas as to what exactly should be done and what they should be doing out there, what should be staff business and what should be commission business, and whether it applies to air flight line stuff or whether it applies to the rest of the property out there. So, because a lot of that falls really under planning and development and a master plan of what that's going to be down the road, and whether that's the proper business of the Airport Commission or maybe the P&Z or PDA or other organizations. And the other thing they're doing is Title 11, looking at this. This is very badly outdated. It concerns air traffic at our airport. It was written a long time ago. And frankly, we're in violation of several of these things at the airport already. And they're going to be taking a look at those things and going through and trying to bring this up to date in the future to decide exactly, what is and isn't permitted and how that airport can be better regulated. One of the complications is it's City of Pocatello and Power County instead of Bannock, and that makes it a little more complex. So the other meeting we had was the senior center. The senior activity center business is booming. A year ago in November, they served 1,255 meals to 333 unduplicated seniors, or an average of 89 a day. This year in November, they served 1,531 meals to 385 unduplicated seniors, for a total of 109 people average per day. On Thanksgiving, they served over 200. And the growth is in the vicinity of 15 to 25% every month as time goes by. The parking lot is full by 11:15 or so every day for lunch. The streets are full. They're spilling over into the state parking lot next door. Tremendous growth over there and things that are going on. They've also changed the process when you go in to sign up for one of those. It's a qualifying meal, because you're supposed to be 60 years old in order to participate in those meals. And there's been a perception that those are free meals, and they're really not. You will get a meal without charge, undoubtedly, but they're finding a new way to suggest to people that they provide a donation for their meal. The meals cost about $10 a piece, and they get $4 reimbursement from SECA for this program. So there's a net loss for every person they serve of around $6. They've taken over the Meals on Wheels stuff. That's just beginning now. They provide the meals, and SECA still takes those meals out. But we're serving more meals than anybody else in eastern Idaho through the Meals on Wheels program. And it caused some need for some additional staffing, which they're having a real struggle getting their hands on. This last month in November, they had a net loss of almost $20,000. And some of that is because they had to buy some extra equipment and staff up a little bit for this Meals on Wheels program. And a lot of those are one-time expenses that they won't necessarily have. But they had a gross income of about $15,500 and net and gross expenses of about $35,000. So again, those are irreversible kinds of things, but it's putting a lot of pressure on the senior center and the senior center board to provide those services to the seniors in our community. And we continue to get an increasing supply of seniors in southeast Idaho. And this is where a lot of them end up. We got 3 new board members that were sworn in yesterday. They take office in January. Chris Young was reelected, and there were 2 others whose last names I didn't get, Mary and Kathy, but I didn't get their last names. They will, pardon? It's Bell, Larry and Kathy Bell. Okay, there you go.
I thought you said
They get seated in January to take over the positions on the board. But, I probably carry on a little bit about the senior center every month when we do this. It's I guess it's become a passion of mine. It's providing a service nobody else in the community does. And that's providing at least minimal nutrition for seniors and a lot of social activity that a lot of single seniors don't get any other way. End of report.
Super important. That's good that you go on about them. Council President Lyric,
Worth going on about.
for sure.
Audit and Investment Committee, we haven't met since our last report, so, and nothing new to report there. Bannock Transportation and Planning Organization, we're meeting on Monday, our meeting from December 1st, I think it was, just got pushed back because we needed to meet about something else, so we consolidated that to the 15th, so nothing new to report there yet. And then PDA, we met, and we'll be meeting again, have our final meeting next week, but we met on November 19th, and the main item there is one I think everybody will be very happy about. We approved the RFQ for the Monarch Building demolition phase to move forward with that. So it was to review and authorize staff to post the RFQ for the Monarch Building demolition phase. So that was approved and is being moved forward with. And the idea is to do everything possible to make that happen, to time the demolition with the closure of the underpass, so we have minimal disruption of our downtown area. And that also is a nice segue into my last assignment, is the Historic Downtown Historic Downtown Pocatello Board. And we met last week, I think it was, yes, because our November meeting was right around Thanksgiving, so that actually got pushed back to the beginning of December. And I reported on the Monarch Building RFQ for demolition, and they were very happy to learn about that. So there's a little bit of overlap between those boards. They would like to see minimal disruption. We did talk about if it was happening when the underpass was open, that we would do everything possible not to only close down one lane and not to completely close Center Street in front of the building. And if for some brief period we absolutely had to, that we would still keep traffic flowing, we would just do a one-block detour. But that should only be maybe one day or something, very minimal. So Historic Downtown Board was happy to hear about that. There's a couple of things from that meeting that I wanted to highlight, and actually some very nice comments that were made that I wanted to share publicly. One was about the water department, really good comments, and I wanted to share that. Justin, if you want to share this with your people. The project in front of the charter school that the water department worked on, because we got to talking about whenever you dig in Pocatello, the boulders that we come up with, and that's an issue with Center Street underpass. We were talking about, the schedule and the timeline for getting that done, and the unknown there is what we're going to encounter when we dig. And so somebody then talked about the boulders that were dug up in that water project, and I know there were, complaints about having that road torn up and detours and the inconvenience. But the comment that I received was that the water department did a phenomenal job on that project, that staff were just friendly and professional and waved at the kids going in and out of the charter school every morning, and just really, really nice to work with, and just great comments about our employees at the water department. So I always like hearing good news and like to share that. There was another good comment. Let me just see. Oh, the city app. So apparently, there was advice to Historic Downtown Board members to use that app as much as possible, that that's the best way to put in, you know, complaints or service orders, or, you know, whatever they see that they want addressed, that that's the best way to deal with it. And one person had that old app, and was still trying to get into it and said it won't load. And we all looked at it and said, yeah, that's the old one. So look for the new logo when you download the app. And I would say to the public, the app is the best way, because that then allows staff to route your comment to the appropriate department, and you don't have to worry about trying to figure out who you're supposed to call and who you're supposed to talk to. But 2 members of the board had been using the app and just raved about it and liked the updates from the old app to the new app, that you can not only see what's happening with whatever you sent in and what the status of it is, but anything near you that somebody else sent in, if it's close to where you are, you can see that and see what other things people are saying and what the status of those things are, so you can look at your whole area and kind of see what's going on, not just the things that you're aware of or that you sent in yourself. So very good comments about the new app. And when people go to download that from your app store, look for the new logo. Make sure it has this new logo. The old app has the old logo on it, but maybe we should see if we can remove that or something, because you can still find it. So yeah, and then people get frustrated if they're downloading the old one. But very good comments about how user friendly it was, and people are using it. So those were the main comments that I had. I guess one last thing is, the city had asked the downtown board to look at what their top priorities are. Mayor and council for several years have been working on our goals and what we want to accomplish, and staff have been working on those things and sort of looking forward, what are the next goals. So they asked for input from the board, and they did come up with 5 priorities in that meeting. And I can just tell you real quick, Center Street Underpass was getting that done in a timely, collaborative way. Like, they can deal with it better with downtown businesses if if communication is open and they know what's going on, and I think that's happening. So that was one of the top things. East Side, some east side attention, parking lot, curb and gutter, and some things like that on the east side. City Hall, the board is actually in favor of moving City Hall, so that was sort of a long-term goal of theirs. Talking about some possible future city funding, assistance for downtown projects, maybe looking at the facade fund that we used to have, something like that for downtown. And then lastly, strengthening the partnership and communication with the city, and just working on building that and strengthening it. Those were their top 5 things. So that is the end of mine.
Super, thank you.
Thanks.
Then I'll just report on the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. We did do a Essentials Needs Drive a few weeks ago, which ended up being great. We do have a few things for the free pantries that we've set up, which is really, really nice to have that. It wasn't as solid as the one before that, but timing, we had a lot of things happen in that day, and so maybe that was part of it. But other than that, kids are meeting, they're doing a great job. They canceled a meeting the end of this month because it falls on the same week as Christmas. And then they moved, they have a special meeting coming up, I think, next Monday as well. So we'll see how that goes. With that, Councilmember Bates.
The library board, they have been very focused on making sure that the board is operating within like standards that the National Library Board governing body operates in. The library board's different from most of our advisory boards because the library is a taxing district, and so they've been very focused on making sure that they're well-trained as board members and holding Eric accountable, which I think he entertains. He's okay with. And then
Good that he entertains that.
yeah. The Arts Council, we did not have a quorum, so we did not meet, and CCOG, we meet quarterly, so our meeting's tonight.
Okay, gee. Super. Councilmember Paulson.
SECA has used all of its COVID money. The 2026 budget is set. This one made us laugh because the state made the board sign a statement that we don't do DEI, but we literally provide services to low-income and disadvantaged people, so whatever. Holes for 2 more houses are dug, so work can be through the winter. 2 more foundations are done, and then phase 3, 16 more houses will be built. Haven't had parks and CDBG. All the nonprofits gave their pitches, and those committee members are working on the point allocation, so sometime soonish, I'm not sure when, we will vote on their recommendations.
Sounds good. Great. All right. Council, thank you very much. Thanks for your work today. And with that, we are adjourned.